Namaskar. We are continuing to discuss the topic of stages of sadhana, of spiritual path. It is a very, very big topic. We can talk 1 month about that. But in that vast topic, there is a little pocket. And I would like to discuss that today. I would like to talk about suffering. The role of suffering, the place of suffering in the life of spirituality. There are 3 stages of human maturity. We are talking about stages of sadhana, the spiritual path, and this is also a related topic, is the stages of human maturity. As a soul, you mature. So there are 3 stages. And the suffering plays different role in those 3 stages. The first stage is when human is just first born. We are actually, our body is animal body. We are the mammals. And we are very similar to animals. If you observe monkeys, if you observe dogs, you'll find they are very, very similar to us. They also feel, they have emotions, they have their attachments, they have their likings, they have their dislikings. They also have their thinking process. But the difference is that animals do not aspire for infinity. But humans do aspire. And that is the difference. So the first stage of human is still animalistic. You are human by your shape, but by your psychology not yet. There is no thirst for infinity. The spiritual yearning is not pronounced, is not expressed, is not awakened. You live just for the sake of comfort. Eating, sleeping, entertaining, etc. This is the first stage. It's called Pashu. And the path at this first stage is called Pashvachar. Pashvachar, the animal path. It's nothing bad. It's not about bad things. It's about the strategy, how the person moves when he is in that stage of maturity. At this preliminary stage, suffering plays crucial role. What is suffering? There is comfort and there is a discomfort. So suffering is a discomfort. What is discomfort? Discomfort is when you want something and you do not get it, and when you don't want something but you get it. So this is called discomfort. And comfort is when all your desires are easily fulfilled. Anukula vidanyam sukham, the congenial feeling when the environment suiting your inner needs is happiness. Yeah, and when the environment is in dissonance, is in disagreement with your inner feeling, is called unhappiness. So in the beginning of the spiritual sadhana, the person, the human being, moves due to circumstantial pressure. If there will be circumstantial pressure, there will be development. If there won't be any circumstantial pressure, the person will not come out of the state of comfort. Imagine a person have everything. Everything is right. Why should he go somewhere and search for something else? He will continue enjoying that situation. So if the development is to take place, there has to be some push from the external environment to that person. And due to that push, the person will move and will blossom, will develop. So this is the Pashvachar. At the second stage, person is termed Vira. Vira means hero. Why he is a hero? Why is he a hero? Because he has to be heroic, because he has to struggle. And that struggle means discomfort. At the heroic stage, the person has understood the value of do's and don'ts. He understands that if I do such actions, if I think such thoughts, my mind will be elevated. And if I think those thoughts and those actions, my mind will be degenerated. Either my consciousness will be developing or my consciousness will be going down, and I have to make a choice. I want my consciousness to develop, but it is a hard path. Something here needs effort and takes a long time before I start to feel joy from that. And here there is something that is so easy and so habitual, and it will give me happiness right now, but it will degenerate my mind. So there is a struggle, inner struggle. And since the person is in struggle, since the person is in war, he is a hero. He's a hero. So on the stage of hero, it is called virachar in Sanskrit. The development is happening due to two factors. One is circumstantial pressure, and second one is the inner urge. You want, you realize your inner needs. You understand that I am a spiritual being and I aspire for greatness, for divinity. So when you realize that, then that is there. And that is motivating you. Why I'm doing meditation? Not because I want to look good. I do meditation because there is this inner inspiration in me, an aspiration for the greatness. That's why I do. So that is the difference between the animal stage and the human stage. So in this virabhav, in virachar, I'm moving ahead, but sometimes I get tired. I get tired and I sort of go to sleep. At that moment, life comes after you and gives some kick. And then you awake and again you move. So in the first stage, you sleep. You don't move anywhere. Then life comes and then BAM! Give you a nice kick into the bed. And then you fly. You move. In that movement, like there is this tamaguna, the force of staticity. If you are under that influence, you are sleeping. Then there is rajaguna, the force of dynamism. Under that influence, you are moving. And there is sattva guna, the force of goodness, the force of beatitude, sentient force. Under that influence, you blossom. You experience joy. So, when you sleep, the consciousness is sleeping. There is no, it is a stage of suffering. Not everyone understands, but it is a suffering. When you actually move, it is a less suffering. But subjectively, it is experienced as a more suffering. But when you move, slowly you blossom that force of goodness within you. It's just like, let's say, imagine the flower. There is a seed. When it is in a seed form, it is under influence of force of staticity. It is lying dormant, it is not moving. Then it awakens, it grows, and then finally it blossoms. So when it blossoms, it is the dominance of the force of sentient force, the dominance of the goodness. And when it is growing, it is the dominance of the dynamic force. So this movement is very good for us. And the circumstantial pressure motivates us to move. And then in the final stage, divyachar, The circumstantial pressure does not affect a person. The person moves only due to internal urge. And he or she moves so fast that life is not able to catch him and give some kick. No need, not necessary, because the development is very, very fast. So the suffering at different stages play different role. At the first stage is the most important. In the path of spirituality, there are very few people who come because of the authentic spiritual urge. Very, very few. Why did you come to the path of spirituality? I was searching for God. I was searching for greatness. Very few. But there are many people who come because of suffering. Or I got sick and my doctor told me you must do yoga. Or I'm a little bit fat, I want to burn some fat, and my cosmetologist, my fitness trainer told me you must do yoga, and I do yoga. Or I have trouble to concentrate my mind, and my professor told me you must do yoga, and so on and so on. There may be different reasons. There is a pain, you try to resolve that pain, get rid of that pain, and you come on the path of spirituality. That is the Pashvachar, due to external pressure. Very few people, they are inborn heroes. They are born already awakened, and they know, I have my spiritual urge, and I want to find something which will fulfill that urge. They are Vira. And then you go through struggle. Vira bhava sada prapya kramina devata bhavet. If you attain a constant heroic ideation, if you are constantly in the state of hero, you become Deva, you become divine being. So, circumstantial pressure is necessary, and you can take now the paper and the pen and write down 5 ways how to create circumstantial pressure for you. Because normally we are at the first and second stages, and circumstantial pressure is very necessary. Our spiritual master, our Guru Deva, he was first of all master of creating of pressure on the disciples. So disciples would find themselves in such a situation where they must move it, they must develop. If they don't develop, they fail. It's like, cannot not develop. They must develop. So in the absence, in the physical absence of such a master, we have to be for ourselves such an agent that creates this circumstantial pressure. How to create? For a few examples. One example, a person says, oh, I think I should get a proper job. Actually, I have money and I have everything, but like this I'm degenerating in my home. I don't find any interest to wake up early. At least if I get a job, I will have to, keep myself in very fit, because there is a pressure. This is one example. Another example is to make deadlines. Okay, by such date, I must accomplish this. Yeah, there are many ways. So if you write down, if you share it in the comments, it will be very interesting, I think. The circumstantial pressures. Another thing is something called clash. Clash. It is an English word, clash, clash of armor, clash of swords. It denotes the conflict. Two things comes and clash. And it is in Sanskrit also there is a word klesha. Klesha means painful situation, suffering. So in yogic philosophy it is quite convenient to use this word clash, which is, I think, even better than klesha in Sanskrit, because clash defines this this conflict. What is this clash? We develop through three factors. One is physical clash. You are in the situation where you have to survive. The struggle for existence motivates you to develop. The most crude, fundamental struggle for survival is the very important evolutionary factor. Then second, when you develop a bit and when you realize the necessity of morality, when you realize do's and don'ts of life, and you decide to elevate your consciousness, then it is a psychic clash. There is something easy but not useful for the development of consciousness, and there is something hard and long and strenuous, but eventually it will elevate you and will make you happiest person in the world, and you have to make choice. Pleasure now or happiness later. And I am habituated for this simple enjoyments and not for those spiritual realm, things of the spiritual realm. So I have to struggle to make a proper choice. If you have seen this movie Star Wars, there is this dialogue between Luke Skywalker and the Master Yoda. And he asks, so the dark side of the Force is stronger? No, not stronger, but more simple and more attractive. So this is very precise. The dark side is more attractive. Something which is of the previous evolutionary stages is more attractive. And something which is ahead of us is not attractive. It is a potentiality, and I must struggle to explore and open up that potentiality. So that's why there is an inner conflict, and due to that inner conflict you become Vira, you become the hero. This is clash. And then there is spiritual attraction. You are attracted by the idea of greatness. You want to realize the supreme wisdom and the universal love and the divine bliss. So these three factors, they develop you. Sometimes it is very often you will hear from the sadhakas, spiritual seekers. You look a little bit sad. How are you? Oh, I have a clash. So a person will say, I have a clash, means I'm suffering. I suffer. But actually not all suffering qualifies as clash. And I want to be very crystal clear here. Sometimes we suffer because of our negative thinking. I'm thinking, oh, there is no money, then all people around are bad, and due to these circumstances, this thing happened, those people, that government, etc. And if you want, you can make a list of 100 items to define why your life is a hell. If you train your mind to see negative things, you will be able to see. But likewise, if you train your mind to see positive, you will also make a list of 500 items of positivity. So if you are just suffering, is a result of karma, it is a result of samskara, the consequences of past actions. Sometimes in the past I have done the action which is not harmonious. I bear in mind an imprint of that action. That imprint is expressing now, and I'm suffering. Due to that imprint, I see the world the way I see it. It is, I have created this world. And due to that imprint, I cannot see the opportunities. I cannot see the possibilities. And due to that, I suffer. Is there any use of that suffering? Yes, it is useful, because when you suffer, you consume the consequences of the past actions. But if you simply suffer, the poison creates poison. If you are painful inside, you will throw that pain out, and you will create pain outside also. So you will reap the consequences of the past. You will consume the consequences of the past, but at the same time, you will create a new causes for the future effects. So this is the wheel of samsara. Always creating a similar existence for yourself. But what is the way out? The way out is to be in the present. At this present moment, I will overcome the consequences of the past. The negativity clouds my mind, propels me to primitive actions, to the primitive desires. But I will not simply give up. I will put my army forward, my soldiers, my inner soldiers, my inner force of light will oppose that army of darkness. If I am negative, I will think positive. If I am thinking that I am unable, I will think I will be able to. I am thinking inferiority complexes, I will think I am a son of God. I am a boy of God, I am a daughter of God. I can do anything and everything. So with the positive idea, if I feel greedy, I will think generous. I want to feed the entire world. I want to give the physical prosperity for every being on this planet. If I am jealous, I will think, he is my friend, she is my friend. I want her to prosper, I want him to prosper. So with the positive idea, you counteract negative idea. And that qualifies as a clash. Before that, it is simply suffering, it's not clash. Clash is when you counteract negative with a positive. And the best way to create clash is to repeat mantra. Because the mantra is the highest, the ultimate form of spiritual vibration. And when that ultimate, subtlemost vibration comes in touch with your vibration of the entire state of your mind, it will conflict, it will clash, and it will elevate your state of being. And that is the most positive clash. Repeating mantra internally, singing universal mantra externally. It is the subtlemost form of clash. So when people say, I feel clash, you have to ask, are you really feeling clash? Or you are just suffering? Are you letting your negativity overcome you? Or you are fighting with your negativity? You have to understand that. If you do, then you will shine. You will become Virabhava sada prapya. What is Virabhava? Virabhava means this state of heroic state where you take that fight. That is the heroism. You fight with the inner negativity, with the inner positivity. That is the Virabhava. Virabhava sada prapya. When you attain the constant state of Virabhava, means when you don't give up to suffering, when you don't give up to darkness, but always contract the darkness with light, then you become Kramena Devata Bhavet. He becomes divine. He becomes divine. Or she becomes divine. That is the... Yeah, so it is about suffering. I hope it was clear, because many times I hear from the spiritual seekers this word clash. So much clash, so much clash. What clash? You don't understand what is clash. clash is something very, very, very positive. Are you doing clash? Or you're just simply suffering? So let us have really authentic clash, real clash, not just surrendering to the darkness. Yeah, I will appreciate, and it is very interesting for me to read your comments. I don't always have time to reply the comments, but I do sometimes. But it is very interesting to read. What are you thinking? How do you understand? And what are your ways to create pressure for yourself? What are your ways to overcome suffering? What is your mental tricks, your psychic tricks to improve your vibration? Thank you. Namaskar.